Hi everyone and welcome back to the course. In this video, we'll talk about control flow statements, and those are all the statements that involve or and while loops in Python. So we'll start by covering the if and the for loops, since we already talked about the while loop, and then we'll move to something more advanced. So let's create a new file here, Python file, and I'll call it control flow. So I'll get a little bit closer so you can see. And let's first talk about if statement. So the if statement is basically a condition that if it is met, the code inside this condition gets executed. If this condition is not met, then the code is not executed. And this is pretty simple. For example, I can create a variable x, and x would be equal to an integer. This is how you can specify that something is specifically integer, and then you can take the user input, and let's write here this enter an integer. Okay, let's do semicolon and space. So x would be assigned to some integer that we specify, and then we can create if statements depending on what is the value of x. So I can do if x is less than 0, then we can make x equal to 0, and then we will print negative changed to 0. Okay, then elif, this means that if x is not smaller than 0, we're just checking another condition. So else if x is equal to 0, then we will print 0. And finally else, which means that the code in else will be executed for absolutely everything except for x equal to 0 and x smaller than 0. This means for all the positive numbers, we'll print higher than 0. Okay, so let's run this code and let's see what happens. Actually, let's run control flow, and you can see here, please enter an integer, right? So I will enter -4, and then I can see the statement negative changed to 0. So we go here and we see that x is smaller than 0. Then we make x equal to 0, and then we print this statement here, right? So let's run this again, but let's now put 0. As you can see, I put 0 here, and then you can see 0 printed just because we didn't go into this if statement, since x is it was not smaller than 0. In fact, x was equal to 0, and for that reason we printed 0. And let's check also our final condition. So let's put a positive integer, 5, and here you can get higher than 0. So this is how if statements basically work. Now let's comment this out and let's move on to for statements, and I will explain them to you in a quite simple way. Okay, so let's write here for loops, and we say loop because the for statement gets executed again and again and again until certain condition is not met. So for example, if I create a list of words, and in this list I can add the words, let's say add doc, and let's say window, and let's say for w in words print w and the length of w. Okay, so there are a lot of things that we need to talk about here. Now the first thing is what is w, and what means this in statement. So we say for w, which I refer to word, actually we can write it as word, so for word. Okay, so for every word in words, now it's more understandable, right? So for every word in words, print the word and also print the length of this word. For example, the length of cat is 3, the length of dog is 3, the length of window is 6. So what the for loop is going to do, it will go to the first word, it will execute what is inside the for loop for that word, then it will move to the next word, and then to the final one. So let's run the program and let's see what we're gonna get printed. So you can see that we have at 3, doc 3, and window 6. And actually in PyCharm there is one very cool feature, which is the PyCharm debugger, which is this thing right here. If I place a point, you can select here and place a point and run the debugger, you can see that your program stops right here. Okay, so it executed this line. We have a list of words that are called at, doc, and window. And now we go in the for loop, but we didn't enter it yet. So if I select this step into, we can see that first the for loop gets executed for cat. Then we're gonna print cat and the length of the word, right? We printed. You can see it in our console. Then we gonna execute the loop for doc, as you can see here, and we'll print the doc 3, and then we'll do that for the final word in the list, which is window, and then we'll print window 6 here. And since this was the last word in our list, when I select the arrow again, we exit. And this is how it works. Let me now remove the point from here and see some other more advanced example. So in Python, there is something that is called dictionary. So dictionary usually has key and value, and if you want to get the value, you need to provide a key. If I do users is a dictionary, and dictionary is with these curly brackets. So let's say ans is the key, and the attribute is active. Okay, then let's say Eleanor inactive, and then let's say John active. Okay, so for example, if I want to do let's say if I want to print user ans, okay, I will see active. So if you select the key, you will get the value, right? If I do John, I will also get active. If I do Eleanor, I'll get inactive. So this is how dictionaries work, and you can also use them into for loops. If I do for user, comma, status, and those could be any type of words. This is just the words that we will use in the for loop. If those, so for those in user.copy.items, so this means if you copy the users, actually don't focus too much about about the copy statement. You need to focus about the items. Here we're getting all the items from users, and we assign the user to the name and the status, the value. Active, inactive, or active. And so obviously in the first iteration or the first time when this loop gets executed, we have for user hands, and for status we'll have active. So let's do if status equals inactive, then we want to delete or del user. Actually, let me do here users so this can differentiate. So users, okay? User refers to the key, while users is the whole dictionary. Okay? So if the user is inactive, we want to delete the user, and then let's print users. Okay, see what has left. So you can see that actually let's print users here as well. So let's do print users so you can see the change. So you can see that before the for loop, our users were with one more, so Eleanor should go deleted in the for loop, because in the for loop what we did is we said if the status of the user is inactive, so let's say the loop will start with hands. So we will say if the status of hands is inactive, which is not the case, then we'll delete it. So we don't delete it since its status is active. Then we'll go to Eleanor, and since her state was inactive, this if statement here will get triggered and we'll delete her. And John will not delete him because he's active. And this is how this works here. And then this gets deleted from users. So when we print the new users, you can see that Eleanor has been removed. But you cannot only remove, but also you can populate a dictionary using for loop. So let's comment this out. And for example, let's create a list or a dictionary of active users. So let's do active users would be equal to an empty dictionary. And now we can populate this empty dictionary. If we do for user and status in users dot items, actually I'm gonna leave the users here so we can use those in order to populate the active users. So let's actually leave the print statement, right? So right now we have the users here, and we want to find only the active users and put them into another dictionary. How you can do that is you can say if status is equal to active, then active users at key user would have value of status. Okay, and here is square signs. Okay, so let's after that print active users, and basically we get the same thing. However, the difference was that in the previous loop we deleted the inactive user, and here we actually created a new dictionary only with active users. So we said if a user is active, add that user to the active users dictionary. So these are two instances that you can use for loops in order to either create or delete elements from a dictionary. So this was the key for creating or and if statements. Thanks for watching, guys, and next we'll talk about some keywords that you can use within the control flow statements. Thanks for watching.